Good morning, you beautiful English learners. What's happening? My name is Ronan. This is Little Seal English. And today, this podcast is a little different to what you're used to. This is actually a re-release of an older podcast, or a consortium of podcasts, I guess. So in 2021 and 2022, I uploaded a series of videos called Murphy's Law. And I received quite positive feedback from those. I guess what made those podcasts quite successful was the genuine aspect of them, like the real aspect of them. It wasn't, yes, there was a bit of a script where I wrote notes and, I wanted to tell a story, but I would often go off script and just tell a story in my own words. And I really wanted to share it with you again. One, because I haven't got a podcast ready for this week yet. I've been working on a fairly big project. I'm very excited to share it with you. And two, because so many people have missed it because it's a fairly old one now, I guess. Or because it's broken up into 4 parts, I wanted to present it to you in an easier way, like with just one long podcast. And as it turns out, it's over 2 hours long when all stitched together and combined. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is I'm getting big into storytelling podcasts again. And I'm very excited for the future. I'm actually in the middle of writing a couple of different podcasts. And one of them is about my first solo trip to the USA, which is so interesting. It's a really fascinating story. I love that one. And it's actually just like what happened to me as I first arrived into the United States of America when I was like 23, 24. I can't remember, one of those ages. I think I was 23 turning 24 that summer. And of course, the shit I got up to is just, you can imagine. And I have many different stories to read, to tell you. But yeah. So I'm very excited for the future. I'm very excited for future podcasts, all related to telling stories. Yes, I'm still going to do the how to use idea in English, how to use whatever in English, or sometimes I get a request for like an English skill. And the English skill would be, hey Ronan, how do you talk to your neighbors? Hey Ronan, how do you tell a person to hurry up? Hey Ronan, how do you request a certain seat in a restaurant? For example. So I'm still going to do those podcasts, but I'm really going to push for the story podcast, including reading a chapter or two of a book and then dissecting it. So I guess right now, before I talk much more or much longer, sit back, relax, and listen to Murphy's Law, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4. And of course, if you have any questions, you know what to do. Just email me. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment and I'll respond to it personally, not a robot or someone else. And if you're in my Telegram group, well, just hit me up there. Overall, I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And if you haven't listened to this podcast, you're in for a treat. If you have, sorry, I'm re-releasing it. But hey, look, listen again. You never know what you're going to learn. You never know what you forgot in the first place. This is a 100% true story. No bullshit in this story at all. Everything that you hear in the story happened, including like the crazy people I met, my feelings of agitation and anger. And it's the main reason why I never, ever, ever want to travel at Christmas again. Because fuck traveling at Christmas. Folks, enjoy the podcast. Bye. We have a saying in English. It's Murphy's Law. And Murphy's Law is like an expression or something that typically means anything that can go wrong does go wrong. And I'm sure you have something in your language as well. Well, we call it Murphy's Law. And I'm going to tell you a story over a couple of different podcasts about this Murphy's Law happening to me. So have you ever been in a situation where you could have said, it was one of those times where everything that could go wrong did go wrong? And if you have ever been able to say that, you're going to love this podcast. So let's start with a bit of background to this story. It all started back in October. I booked flights back to the homeland from Canada for Christmas. First Christmas in 10 years that the entire Scott family are getting back together. Needless to say, I was excited. I was over the moon. I was finally going to get to see my siblings at the same time, and that has been a very, very, very long time ago. You have to also understand that Christmas in Ireland is a huge celebration. It is definitely our biggest time of the year. And it's a time when everyone returns home, you go back to your families, you catch up with old friends. It's a wonderful time of year in Ireland. Not religious or anything like that, but it's just the time when we celebrate. Also, Christmas 2022 was the very first time my wife and I were returning back to Ireland since we got married. So we had seen my parents, they came to visit, but we hadn't seen anyone else, hadn't seen any of her siblings, hadn't seen her parents. So there was a lot to pack in for Christmas 2022. And in October, I booked my tickets back home. And as I said, super excited, super pumped. I should let you know now that my wife actually returned to Ireland about 6 weeks before me for one of her friends' weddings. And there was no point in her going from, say, Canada to Ireland for a wedding, back to Canada in November, and then in December going all the way back to Ireland. So she just hung out in Ireland for 6 weeks. She can work remotely. That's good. I, however, do not work remotely. I work in the college, so I had to physically be here until about the 18th or 17th of December. So anyways, so that meant I'm traveling solo. So this entire story is just me experiencing it. So fast forward to December. It is game day, folks. It is time to travel. It is time to make the long journey home. My journey was broken up into 3 different parts. First, Kelowna, Vancouver. Second, Vancouver, Chicago in the USA. And third, Chicago back to Dublin, Ireland. In theory, smooth sailing. I had plenty of time in between connections. In theory, the journey was only going to take about 17 hours in total, so it's not that long. The only issue was my flight to Vancouver was on Friday night, and my flight to Chicago from Vancouver was on Saturday morning. So I had about 12 or 13 hours to kill in Vancouver City, which is a really cool city. Now, I had arranged to meet up with a friend in Vancouver. A friend some of you might know, Kira, from Professor Prep on Instagram. Check out her page. Focuses on IELTS and delivers some really cool IELTS courses. So definitely go over and check out her page. Now, I was excited because Kira would be one of the very first Instagram English teaching friends that I would be meeting in person, face to face, in the flesh. You know, since I started teaching on Instagram or using Instagram, and you make connections with people from all over the world, she's one of the few people in Canada that I talk to from Instagram, and I was super excited because I finally get to see this person. Prove they're actually a real person and not just some AI generated Instagram page or something. So I arrived to Vancouver. I pay $8.50 to get the Skyrail into downtown Vancouver. And as soon as I arrived to Vancouver, I got a text from Kira, the person I was just about to meet. Motherfucker got the cold. Yes, Kira got the cold. So, the very first part of my perfect trip home to Ireland got off to a rocky start. I figured it was the worst thing that was going to happen on this trip. I'd planned to stay with Kira in Vancouver for a couple of hours. In the morning, hop on the Skyrail, go back to Vancouver Airport. But now that plan was a no-go. I mean, I totally could have hung out with her. However, if she has a cold, and I'm flying internationally, is it worth the risk? Probably not. I did not want to have a trace of the sniffles. I did not want to have a trace of a cough, a trace of a cold, or anything like that. So I decided to forgo on hanging out with Kira and just spend the night in Vancouver by myself. You know, if I wasn't traveling internationally, yeah, I probably would have hung out with her, but not when I'm just about to hop on an international flight to Ireland. So in that little segment, I said, I did not want to have a trace of the sniffles, a trace of a cough, a trace of a cold, or a trace of anything like that. A trace of. It's a fairly good phrase. A trace of something is just like a very, very small amount of something. You know, I do not want to have the sniffles. I do not want to have a trace of the sniffles. I do not want a runny nose. I do not want puffy eyes. I want nothing resembling the cold before I fly. I do not want a trace of it. So a trace of is a very, very, very small amount of something. Today, forensics are so good they need just a trace of DNA to identify a person. Random example. I also mentioned I decided to forgo hanging out with Kira and spend the night in Vancouver by myself. So did I hang out with Kira? No. So I forwent hanging out with Kira. I decided to forgo hanging out with Kira. And to forgo is to omit something, to not take advantage of something, to not do something. It's not a very common verb. It's more formal, academic, or even legal English. And I don't know why I said it. I have no idea. But I decided to forgo. More formal phrase, more formal way of saying I decided not to. I decided to skip hanging out with Kira. So now you know what it means, even if you don't use it. All right, so back on track. I'm in Vancouver, Van for short, and my trip got off to a rocky start. It got off to a bumpy start. It was not a smooth start. Anyways, I'm in Vancouver. I'm alone. I'm a youngish man. It's a Friday night. I'm on holidays. I'm on holiday mode. What am I gonna do? Obviously, I'm gonna go grab a drink. Because I'm on holiday mode. Yes, whenever I'm on holiday mode, I have no intention of working or being healthy. I want to relax. I want to let my hair down. I want to chill the fuck out. I want to have fun. Because I was in holiday mode or on holiday mode, I decided to hit up a sports bar. I sat down and had a few beers. I love holiday mode. You know, over Christmas, I was in holiday mode for like a full week. I forgot what day of the week it was. That's the best. Do not talk to me about work. I'm on holiday mode right now. As soon as 5 p.m. comes, I'm on weekend mode. Do not ask me any questions related to work. God, yeah. So that's like a time plus mode. You know, holiday mode, weekend mode, cleaning mode, activity, cleaning mode, for example. Good one. All right, so I'm in this bar. It was quiet when I arrived. Started to get busy. It's a Friday night, of course it was. I ordered a pizza. It was mediocre at best. I was quite disappointed. And this chick was sitting beside me, and we just started talking. And it was real nice. Real cool lady, yeah. Until she turned out to be batshit fucking crazy. I mean, I swear to God, you never know who you're sitting beside, but I was not ready for this. You know, at first we hit it off. We spoke about Vancouver, we spoke about Kelowna, just spoke about random stuff. And then, out of nowhere, the conversation took a very hard turn, and she said, I think I want to fuck younger men. Older men cannot keep up with me. Are you serious? Okay. Not really sure. That's something I would personally feel comfortable sharing with strangers in a bar, but so be it. Strange thing to say, eh? You know, it didn't take long before she was slurring her words, losing control of her volume, pissing off the bartenders, and even hitting on the guy to her other side. She even went so far as showing everyone around her a seductive selfie of herself. I shit you not, she was batshit crazy. It did not take long before I bailed. I decided to spend the rest of the evening at the airport. I did not need to put up with this shit on my first day of vacation. I was way too sober to talk to her, so I just needed an out. I just needed to get away from there. Alright, so we're going to take a look at some of the English in that little segment. And I really want to focus on a hard turn, batshit crazy, boy toy or fuck buddy, and to slur. So a few good ones to look out for. But the first one is a hard turn. So folks, in that conversation with that random chick at the bar, it was a normal conversation. We were just talking about fun activities that you can do, just general chit chat, nothing serious. Then the conversation took a hard turn. She started talking about her sex life. She started showing pictures of herself in a bra to the patrons around her and to the bartenders. Let's be honest. That's not fucking regular behavior. For me, it was really, really strange. Our conversation was going well, then it took a hard turn and boom, it got real weird real quick. Have you ever been in a car that took a hard turn? Well, if you're a passenger in that car, you kind of get thrown to one side of the vehicle. Imagine you're a passenger in a car and you're driving on the highway. You're driving straight, no turns, just straight. Then you see a McDonald's coming up, and your driver, they fucking love McDonald's. The McDonald's is getting closer. The driver is not slowing down. They're not going to stop. Then suddenly, without warning, they decide to take a hard turn into McDonald's without warning you, without slowing down, without even using a turn signal. You get thrown to one side of the vehicle. That's a hard turn, folks. So how can a conversation take a hard turn? Well, you could be talking to someone about the weather, and then they ask you about assisted suicide. That's a hard turn. You could be talking to someone about your favourite ice cream, and they ask you if you're planning to have kids or something. That's a hard turn from ice cream. You could be talking to someone about sport, and then suddenly they ask you about your sex life. That's a very hard turn from sport. The first part of the conversation is normal. The hard turn is not fucking normal shit to talk about. There's no relation between part A and part B of what was being said. So how can you use this idiom? Well, if you're in a group, you could say, "Wow, Ronan, that's a hard turn." Right after someone changes the conversation to a brand new topic. If I'm the one who's going to introduce the hard turn, I could just say, "Sorry for the hard turn on the conversation, but blah, 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 blah." And that's a great segue to bring up a brand new topic. And of course, you could just say, "Wow, Ronan, what a hard turn. The fuck is wrong with you?" So that conversation took a hard turn. That's a very common way of saying it. Or, "Well, you took a hard turn." So, overall, a hard turn is a new conversation that is entirely different to the original, usually on a very strange or heavy topic. In that one, I also mentioned to slur. And I mentioned how the woman began to slur her words. Slur. S-L-U-R. The more she drank, the more she slurred. She was slurring her words. You know the verb to slur. When a person drinks too much and they lose the ability to talk coherently and their words kind of run into one another, that's slurring. Think about it. We all know a person who, when they get a few too many drinks into them, they lose the ability to talk coherently. They lose the ability to pronounce every single word correctly. Instead of saying something, they might say shumptin. Instead of saying, "Are you serious?" they would say, "Are you serious?" The S sound gets more difficult to say when you get drunk, and it's a very common one for being slurred. What's happening? What's happening? I can't remember the last time I was so drunk that I was slurring my words, but it has happened. it's a clear sign that you're shit-faced. I think it's like if I drink too much whiskey, that's when I will slur my words. You know, beer is one thing, but whiskey, whatever it is about that, if I have too much of that, I'll slur my words. And there's times when I catch myself and I can't help but laugh because it sounds funny. You know, you have an idea of what you're going to say and then your mouth just doesn't work. It is pretty funny. It's quite frustrating at times, and it's very hard to be taken seriously if you're slurring your words. So this woman was in the bar, knocking back the drinks, and she began to slur her words. And for me, that's a just no. Like, if you're my friend, I will absolutely hang out with you when you're that shit-faced. But her, I don't know this chick. I'm on holiday mode. I'm out of here. She also mentioned her boy toy. You know, and a boy toy is a man that you fuck for fun, nothing serious. Also known as a fuck buddy, friends with benefits, a bit in the side, a squeeze, many different ways of addressing this kind of relationship. But it is just a no strings attached relationship. Just you meet someone, you fuck them, and you're done. And a boy toy could be an older boy toy or a younger boy toy. That's how people would talk about it. So this chick was not happy with her older boy toy. She said she wanted to trade him in for a younger model. So, yeah. Thankfully, I'm over the age of 30 and I was too old. I also mentioned how she was crazy. But not just a little crazy. Not very crazy. Not really crazy. Not absolutely crazy. She was batshit crazy. Batshit crazy. BATSHIT crazy. And that is an extreme form of crazy. You know, you're not just a little crazy, you're batshit crazy. It's the strongest type of crazy there is. She was insane. I do not know the origins of this collocation, batshit crazy, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere and it's gotta be interesting. So if you describe a person as batshit crazy, you're just saying how this person is wild, off the wall, uncontrollable, for example. Anything like that. So folks, to revise, the very first leg of my trip got off to a rocky start. I was due to hang out with a friend. She bailed because she got a cold, and because I'm traveling internationally, I decided to play it safe and not hang out. If there was no flight, absolutely, but it is what it is. It was what it was. Because my friend was unable to hang out, I had nowhere to stay. Granted, I was only in Vancouver for about 12 hours, but still, I had no couch, I had no place to just go and sit down. So I decided to go to a bar, get some grub, got talking to this lady, turns out she's crazy, and I just dip out of there. You know, to dip out. I decided to just do an Irish goodbye. I just left. Honestly, I doubt she even noticed. Okay, to be honest, I told her I was going to go outside for a smoke, and then I never returned. The classic going for a cigarette trick, folks. If you ever need to get out of a situation, even if you're not a smoker, just say it. Unless they ask for one, and then you're kind of in a hoop. So, I had a lot more time, but I didn't want to just be hanging out in Vancouver. You know, spending money, walking around with luggage. Friday night in Vancouver, it was rain. It was a little wet, wasn't pouring rain, but it still wasn't great weather. So, I mean, I was in a bit of a situation. I thought about going to the cinema. I was going to go see Avatar at 11 p.m. and that would have taken me up to about 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. almost, which is good timing. But honestly, I was so tired, I felt I was going to fall asleep had I sat down there. Like, we're talking, like, it's 10:30 p.m. now, or at the time of the story when I left the bar, and I'm usually in bed at 9 or 9:30, so it's time is ticking, you know? What else? Couldn't get a hotel in Vancouver. They're way too expensive. Like 12 hours, I'm not paying $300 for a hotel room for that short amount of time. And yes, there is nowhere cheaper in Vancouver. It is a very expensive city. If I had like 24 hours, yeah, I would definitely have considered a hotel, but not for a 12-hour stay. So folks, I just returned to the airport. You know, as lame as that may sound, I went to town, had some fun, decided to go back to the airport and kip it in the airport for the night. And that is where we get to part 2 of this podcast, folks. The lady wakes the bear. Oh, yeah. So, folks, welcome to part 2 of the podcast, The Lady Wakes the Bear. So, I returned to the airport and thus began my search to find a nice spot to rest my weary, weary head. Weary. That is a specific adjective. He's weary. Careful he doesn't faint. I need to rest my weary head. We use this adjective when we're discussing how tired or weak a person or something is. When I say a man is weary, it means he is weak. Maybe due to health concerns, maybe some other reason. Have you ever been so tired that you were weak and unable to really do anything at all? That's weary. Common collocation, weary head. Rest your weary head and sleep. You know, maybe it's not too common, but it is quite a descriptive way of talking, and I am a descriptive talker. Have you ever been sick? Of course you have. Have you ever been sick and not had any energy? You know, you're weak, you're frail, you're tired. You struggle to get out of bed, and when you do, you take a few steps and you're exhausted again. That's weary. Have you had the flu? Like the real flu. The one that knocks you for 6. The one that knocks you down. The one that when you get up, you go to the bathroom, you go back to bed, and you're thinking, that was exhausting. That is weary. So when you're weak, it's weary is another way to say it. Look it up. So I was weary. I arrived at Vancouver Airport at night, and I needed to find a space to kip it for the evening. You know, a place to rest my head, a spot to lay low for a few hours in the airport. So, have you ever slept in an airport? Have you ever slept on the floor of an airport? Have you ever spent a night in an airport? For me, it's not new, but it's something that I haven't done in a very, very long time. When I was young and more foolish, I travelled around Europe. It was cheap, it was easy. I would hop on a low-cost airline, like Ryanair, and I'd spend the weekend in Copenhagen, Spain, or somewhere in between. I remember once I got to Stockholm for only €12. Can you imagine? €12. For €12, you can't go wrong. That's a nice phrase. You can't go wrong. For €12, you can't go wrong. I use that tag, you can't go wrong, to support what I'm saying. You know, it's kind of like if I'm in a city and I see a meal deal for a pint of beer and a burger for $10. Can't go wrong with that. Anyways, I kipped it on the floor, I took a nap, I slept, but to be honest, it wasn't a great sleep because it's an airport floor. I tried to sleep. I was in and out of sleep. And then it began. I was rudely awoken by a lady on her phone at about 4 a.m. Now picture this. You're in an airport. It's about 3:30 a.m. A very, very, very empty airport. You see a man sleeping on the ground. You might have mistaken this man for a bear. Now in English we have a very relevant idiom for this little anecdote I'm about to share, and it is, let sleeping dogs lie. This is a very relevant and important idiom. It basically translates to, don't fucking wake a person up. So, as I said, I'm on the floor in this very, very, very empty airport, and I was rudely awakened by a stupid, entitled, elderly Canadian on her phone talking like she was addressing a crowd of 5,000 fucking people. I slowly struggled to open my eyes. My ears were pierced by her giving out to some poor customer agent on the other end of the phone. She is looking at me. Directly at me, directly into my eyes, on the phone to customer service. And at this point in my head, I had an idea of taking her phone and smashing it on the ground. But of course I did not do that because that would land me in jail or something. She hangs up the phone and then she says, "Oh, sorry. Did I wake you?" Now, normally I would say the polite thing, which is, "Oh no, not at all. I was about to wake up anyways." But it's 3:30 a.m. I have slept on the floor of an airport and I said, "Yes." You could have chosen anywhere else in the empty terminal to speak loudly on your phone, but you chose here. What is wrong with you? I actually did ask what was wrong with her. She was shocked. I was pissed. She continued to stare at me. I stood up. I towered over her. The bear was awake. She asked me another question. I can't recall the question because, it was fucking 3 o'clock in the morning. But I do remember my answer. "Lady, I don't give a fuck." And I walked away. Now, I know I should not have swore at her. I know she probably thought I was a rude bastard, which I was. But at the end of the day, do not make a fucking phone call and be as loud as possible when standing next to a person sleeping on the ground. That lady was oblivious, obnoxious, clueless, rude, entitled, ignorant, up her own hole. That lady believed she was the king of the fucking universe. In reality, she was a cunt. She might have been nice. I don't know. I don't want to know. But my patience was thin. My patience was gone. I was on a very, very short fuse. I was exhausted. And when I'm exhausted, I guess my filter is the first thing to go. So I walked away from her. I found somewhere to sit down and get ready for my flight back to Ireland. So overall, I went to Vancouver. I tried to meet my friend. It didn't happen. I went to a bar. I spoke to a lady in the bar. Turns out she's batshit crazy. I leave the bar. I go back to Vancouver Airport to sleep because I'm fucking tired. I find a place to sit down in the corner of the airport. It's an empty airport. And then in the morning, some fucking woman is talking on her phone so loud she could wake up the entire fucking country. So as you can see, my trip was definitely not going according to plan, but it is what it is because I'm going home for Christmas. Alright, so let's look at some of the key English that came up in that little segment, part 2, The Lady Wakes the Bear. Well, we're going to start with the adjectives or phrases I used to describe that woman. And I said she was oblivious, rude, clueless, ignorant, obnoxious, entitled, up her own hole, or the king or queen of the universe. A lot of these are interchangeable, but we're going to just have a look at a few of them in greater detail, and we're going to start with oblivious. If you are oblivious, you are completely unaware of what is happening in your surroundings. You are not paying attention to what is happening around you. That woman was oblivious to. That woman was oblivious to how loud she was talking and where she was standing. The man pulled his car over on the busy street to run into the shop. He was completely oblivious to the traffic jam he was causing. So oblivious is when you are 100% unaware of what is happening around you. Are you oblivious? Are you oblivious to something? The president was oblivious to corruption, although I think he was willfully oblivious. You know, if you're oblivious, it might not be your fault, but you could pretend to be oblivious when you really know something is happening. Obnoxious, rude, offensive, unpleasant. That woman was obnoxious. That woman on the phone. You know, she could have stood anywhere in the airport, but nope, she had to stand right by me. Why? Because she is obnoxious. The woman at the hotel was incredibly obnoxious to the staff. She needs to calm down. You, sir, are an obnoxious asshole. That new worker seemed a little bit obnoxious. Did you see how she ignored the receptionist? Knock that obnoxious look off your face, or I'll do it for you. So obnoxious, rude, offensive, unpleasant, oblivious, completely unaware. Ignorant. Now guys, ignorant is quite popular. I mean, it's one of these more common English words, I guess, or common English insults or adjectives for people, and it's very similar to obnoxious and oblivious, but it does have quite a few different meanings. Firstly, ignorant is unknowledgeable or uneducated. Ignorant is when you do not listen to others because you think you are better than them. If you are not knowing facts or information that you ought to know, you are ignorant. The man was ignorant to the severity of his actions. Many people are blissfully ignorant about the dangers of the sun. The judge was ignorant to the law when he passed the sentence. Now, in parts of the world, like Ireland, like the UK, ignorant can also be used for rude or impolite. Basically, if someone calls you ignorant, it's never positive. If someone says you are ignorant, it is quite interchangeable with obnoxious, rude, offensive, unpleasant. You think you're the fucking best. Entitled. This one I feel is very common today. Entitled. And I don't know about you where you live, but where I live it seems that there are a lot of entitled people. You know, people who believe they inherently deserve privileges or special treatment. Why? I don't fucking know. Because in their mind, they think they're special. They think they're better than you. They think they're more important than you. A person who believes they're more important than others is entitled. When you believe you are inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment, you are entitled. The classic example would be the offspring of a very wealthy or rich individual, the son of a billionaire, the daughter of a billionaire, for example. They think they deserve special treatment because that's how they have lived their entire life. They have always been treated specially. They've always been treated with high regard, for example. So, I've lived in Canada for quite a while, and I've worked many different jobs. In fact, I've worked many jobs all over the world. And I've come across so many different people. Some of these people, most of these people have been great. However, when it comes to teaching, some people believe that as a teacher I should do more for them. They believe that I must spend all my time in class with them or working directly with them and not others. They feel that they should be treated with more respect than others in class. For instance, the student was extremely rude and acted entitled when she came into the international student's office, snapping her fingers to get the attention of the volunteer. Because I've worked with so many different cultures, I've realized a lot of people do not mean to come across as entitled, but it does happen. They're not familiar with the etiquette or customs of Canada. The restaurant example is probably one of the easiest to go by. So a student of mine told me how he went to a restaurant one time and he clicked his fingers to get the server's attention. To click your fingers. That is to click your fingers. One more time. I'm using my fingers to make a noise to get your attention. Now that might be okay with your friends. That might be okay where you live. But in Canada, that is a big, big, big no-no. You cannot do that. That is a no-no. Okay, maybe I should talk about a no-no, because that's a really cool one. A no-no is something you should never do. That's a no-no. Don't do it. It's a noun. So, clicking your fingers to get the attention of a server is a big no-no in Canada. You cannot do that. However, in this student's culture, it was standard behavior. Now, in Canada, we would say you are absolutely entitled if you click your fingers at the server. You need to be patient and wait. The server will come to you when they have time. If you start clicking your fingers, you're basically saying, I am more important than everyone else in this restaurant. You need to be patient and you need to wait. If a person barks orders at you and they're not your boss, they are acting with entitlement. The rich asshole came into the store and acted all entitled. He was barking orders at me like he was my boss. I told him to go fuck himself. Don't do that, you might get fired. But entitled is believing you deserve special privilege. It's never positive. It's always negative. There are more meanings to entitled, but we're only focusing on the negative adjective of it today, to describe a person who believes they're better than others, to describe a person who believes they are owed some sort of, what would I call it, special treatment. That is entitled. Do you know anyone who is entitled? Who are they? Why are they entitled? Why do they believe they're better than others? Is it because their parents have told them that? Is it because they grew up with no rules? Is it because their mother or father are in a position of power in your area? Maybe the son or daughter of a politician. It doesn't have to be the son or daughter. A politician can be entitled too. God, I really hate entitled people. It's a great adjective though, entitled. Don't be such an entitled cunt, please. Terrible. My mouth is terrible today. Alright. Moving on to a more crude insult. To be up your own hole. Wow. This phrase comes with a warning. Use this around close friends or if you want to confuse an American. Yes. It's very vulgar, I'll be honest. And it's definitely more common in Ireland and is certainly a take on Hiberno English. You can obviously use this in any other English-speaking area, but change the word hole for ass. To be up your own ass, to be up your own hole. So if you're up your own hole, you're stuck up, you're rude, you're entitled, you think you're the best. You know, a lot of these phrases and adjectives we have used are interchangeable, and this is very similar to entitled. Very similar to ignorant. But of course, up your own hole is way more informal and vulgar and slangy than any of those. Oh, there's my phone making a noise. Did you hear that? Alright, so if you are up your own hole, you're ignorant, you think you're better, you're obnoxious, you're rude, you're entitled. If you're up your own ass, it's the same. In America, up your own ass. In Ireland, up your own hole. Most other places, probably up your own ass. So, when I was talking there, folks, I said I had a short fuse. And I guess at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I always have a short fuse. You know, I usually pride myself on my patience, and I pride myself on my long fuse, if that's even a way of talking about it. But at that moment in that story, I had a very short fuse. I was on a short fuse. And that means that you get angry quickly. You know, it doesn't take much, or it doesn't take a long time for you to go from calm to angry. For me, I had a short fuse. It was 4 a.m. in the morning. When the woman woke me up, of course I had a short fuse. What did you expect? Now, we often use a short fuse for people who are always easily angered. It's not just a one and done thing. It's maybe on a regular basis. For example, I hate my boss. He has a short fuse. It doesn't take much for him to lose his temper ever. Why does Martin always have a short fuse? The man needs to take a chill pill or a joint. You should do some meditation. You always got a short fuse and it can't be healthy for you. So think about someone you know. Think about a person that you know who has a short fuse. How do you avoid pissing off that person? Or do you know anyone that gets real angry real quick? Like something bad happens and in a matter of seconds they're angry. A short fuse, you get angry very, very, very quickly. Okay, let's look at a verb. To kip. K-I-P. And that is to informally sleep somewhere. I kipped in the airport for a few hours. Oh, there's my alarm going. Can you hear that? I'm not going to stop recording. I do believe this is a fire drill, not an actual fire. Do I go out or do I stay here? It's funny though, because a fire alarm usually signals that you need to leave the building. And I've noticed in Canada, people are very, very good at that. However, in Ireland, we're not very good at it. There we go. It was just a fire drill. I knew it. So a fire drill is when you practice in case of a fire, like a drill. D-R-I-L-L. And that was a fire drill just there. Now, I was just saying how in Ireland, if the fire alarm goes off, for some reason, we generally do not pay too much attention to it. I don't understand why, but we don't. However, in Canada, if the fire alarm goes off, you obviously get up and leave the building. Now, there was a sign downstairs that said there would be a fire drill today, hence I did not leave or did not stop recording. However, if it were an actual fire, I absolutely would have gotten up and left. So there's a bit of random English for you. A fire drill. We just had a fire drill. There was a fire drill. There is a planned fire drill for tomorrow at 12 o'clock, for instance. So, where was I? I believe I was talking about kip. And I mentioned how I kipped for a few hours at the airport. I mentioned how I kipped it. Now, we often use the pronoun it after kip. I kipped it on the floor for 3 hours. I kipped it in the airport for a few hours. You don't always need to say it. It's just popular. Can I kip at yours tonight? You know, if you're out in the town with some friends and they live in town but you live far away from town, you might want to stay at their house for the night. So, can I kip it at yours tonight? Or you could just say, hey, I'm gonna kip it at yours if that's okay. It's also used as a noun and it can be interchangeable with nap. You know, I had a nap. Oh, I had a kip on the couch or the sofa. I'll have a kip afterwards. After dinner, I'll have a little kip and then I'll be ready to go. Okay, so let's continue, shall we? To tower over a person. You know, we use this phrase when a person is taller than another person. My name is Ronan and I often tower over people. I'm about 6'1". My wife is about 5'8". I tower over her. I'm much taller than her. Do you tower over people? Or do people tower over you? I met a guy who was like 6'8" in the airport on my travels. He towered over me. That must be so awkward for traveling. The building towered over the park, so we can also use this for structures of general things. The old tree towered over the forest. It was beautiful. I also mentioned in that text how, or in the anecdote, The Lady Wakes the Bear, about how my patience was thin. And if your patience is thin, it's very similar to having a short fuse. Unlike the way we commonly use a short fuse, patience can be strong at first and slowly get weakened as time goes on. I have a lot of patience in the morning. I do not have a lot of patience in the evening. Or imagine you're working on a project at work. There's a delay. The boss doesn't mind, but can accept it. Then as time goes on, there's another delay. The boss is not happy, but again they can accept it and get over it. Then there is another delay. Well, now the boss is running out of patience. Now the boss's patience is thin. It's running thin. So the boss's patience is running thin, and as a result, you don't want to screw up one more time. We often use it when we are the one who is losing patience. My patience is running thin. We can use it in the past tense as a general feeling of a group of people. The patience was running thin amongst the group. And that would describe a general situation where the overall consensus was impatience and frustration. Imagine you're working with a new colleague and they keep fucking up. They keep making mistakes. Well, this is a prime opportunity for you to say, my patience is running thin with the new worker. He keeps making mistakes. My patience was running thin last week with the new worker. Thankfully, she pulled it together and fixed her mistakes. After 3 hours of trying to manage the children, the mother's patience was running thin. She was visibly angry. And for me, while I was awoken at 4 a.m. by a loud, obnoxious woman, my patience ran thin quickly. Not proud of it, but geez, stand somewhere else. I said how I have no filter, and a filter, in the case of this story, is referring to the ability to filter your words and use appropriate vernacular for a given situation. Now, my name is Ronan, and if you've listened to my podcast before or ever met me in person, you may know I do not have much of a filter. Of course, I have a filter at work, I have a filter when out and about, and when I'm amongst friends, I do not have a filter. If I'm around strangers, yeah, I'll probably have a filter. I talk about anything and everything. I say what I want. I don't mind talking about X, Y, or Z. Do you have a friend who swears a lot, who says inappropriate things? They don't have filters. Now, it can be positive or negative. You know, if you do not have a filter when you should, your mouth might get you in trouble. They might talk before they think. You know, like I said, at work, I have a filter. I do not swear. I don't always give my personal opinion on matters. I don't give out to students for their opinions. I'm happy to talk about a lot of topics, but because I have a filter at work, I won't be talking about some taboo topics. You know, I want to avoid topics that might hit a nerve. Drugs, death, abortion, religion, suicide, because you never know what the personal opinions or lived experiences of people are. And as a result, I need to be wary of that. I need to have an effective filter. If I'm hanging out with my friends and I get a little tipsy, there is no filter then. I don't need a filter at that point. I'm so comfortable around my friends and they're not going to judge me if I say something inappropriate or whatever. But there is a difference between having a filter or having no filter and being a dick. And if you do not have a filter, you do need to be careful because you do not want to say something without thinking that actually insults or offends or upsets a person. The last one we're going to talk about is to address a crowd. Have you ever needed to address a group of people? You know, if you're a manager, you might address the workers or customers. It's usually used in a formal way. If I'm talking to my friend, I'm not really addressing my friend, I'm just chatting. A politician, though, will address the public. They will talk formally to the public. They will have a speech prepared. And in the story, I said the woman spoke like she was addressing a crowd, which meant she was talking loudly when she didn't have to. How would you feel if you had to address a group of people? My name's Ronan and I'm quite used to addressing people. It's my bread and butter. It is my job, folks. I'm really good at it. I have no issues addressing strangers or anything like that. How would you feel if you needed to address a group of your peers and explain something in a presentation? Can you address a crowd if you need everyone's attention? Are you able to address a large group of people? Imagine you're working in a restaurant, a cafe or somewhere, and you need to get everyone out of the building for some emergency. Someone smells gas. Well, you need to address the crowd calmly and ensure everyone leaves in a calm fashion. The police officer addressed the man on the street because he was drunk. The manager addressed the workers to break the news that they were bankrupt. The air steward addressed the passengers, informing them of the delay. So to address a crowd or to address a person is to talk formally to them. I used it in a figurative way that the woman in the airport sounded like she was trying to address a crowd of, 5,000 people or something. So imagine you're talking to 5,000 people, probably not how you should be talking in an airport. That was part 2 of this podcast, folks. The Lady Wakes the Bear. Yeah, it was a tough one. It was horrible. I did not enjoy it at all. To recap, I had to spend the night in the airport, found a nice wee corner to sleep at on the floor. I was awoken rudely by a lady talking way too loud and the worst possible location. She asked me if I was bothered. I said yes, and I walked away. But the good news was, it was now morning. I was about to go through security and hop on my plane back to Ireland. So excited. Are you ready for part 3? Here we go, folks. Part 3. Holy shit, that son of a gun did it. He actually did it. It was a long shot, but by God he did it. Wait, is that John? My neighbour? By God, this is a small world. Last time I seen him, he dicked me around. I shit you not. He kept me in the dark and dicked me around for a while. If he gets too close to me, I might start swinging and sure we'll see what happens. Good morning, you beautiful people. Welcome to the Little Seal English podcast. This is part 3 of Murphy's Law. If you haven't, go back and listen to part 1 and 2 before you listen to this episode. It will make a lot more sense if you do. In that opening segment, there was a lot of random English, and guess what? That is the random English that we're going to focus on in this episode. In this episode, we talk about layovers. We talk about Chicago or Chicargo. We talk about delays. We talk about how when you're Irish, it is a very, very small world. I talk about a long shot, music to my ears, to start swinging. That has many meanings. To be kept in the dark, to shit you not, to dick around, a long shot, and a son of a gun. So everyone, grab a pen and paper, grab a coffee, grab a beer, grab a joint, sit back, relax, and get ready for Murphy's Law Part 3. Here we go. In part 1 and part 2 of this story, I explained how I was on my way home to Ireland for Christmas. First, I went to Vancouver and had a horrible sleep. Then I was woken up very rudely by a woman, and I may have lost my cool with her. And now we're here. Part 3 of Murphy's Law. And the title of this episode is Ronan Visits Chicago, folks. Remember, Murphy's Law is basically everything that can go wrong will go wrong. This part of the story takes place just after arriving to Chicago from Vancouver. So because it's winter, there's no direct flights between Vancouver and Dublin. There are flights via London and then Dublin. There are flights which have 1 layover, 2 or 3 layovers, it just depends. But there's no direct flight from Vancouver to Dublin. Generally speaking, whenever I go to Ireland, it's usually from Kelowna to Vancouver or some other big city, and then I cross the Atlantic. In the past, I've gone from Kelowna to Calgary, Kelowna to Edmonton, Kelowna Toronto to Kelowna Vancouver, and from those places, I've gone on to Dublin. Once or twice, I think it was Kelowna, Toronto, Toronto, Newfoundland, Newfoundland, Dublin, which is an absolute pain. Anywho, generally speaking, whenever I go back, there's at least 1 layover. And that was the situation for this trip. Just 1 little short layover in the beautiful city of Chicago. Chicargo or Chicago? I've always had trouble pronouncing this. And it's specifically an Irish thing. So the city's name is spelt Chicago. And for some reason in Ireland, we like to say Chicago. Chicago. I do believe the pronunciation is Chicago. So I'm going to try my best to say it. Please do not laugh at me. I actually looked up some random facts about this beautiful city, and fact number 1, Chicago is home to the very first skyscraper ever built. It was completed in 1885, and it was the first building to use a steel frame method, and it was 10 stories high. 10 stories high, folks. That was the world's biggest skyscraper in 1885. That building has since been demolished, and that was demolished in 1931. Fact number 2. Chicago is known as the Windy City. But the nickname actually has nothing to do with the city's weather. The term was first coined by New York City journalists in the 1800s to describe the city's politicians, who were seen as full of hot air. And if you're full of hot air, you're going to be windy, folks. And you're going to be angry and outspoken, maybe. So the nickname, the Windy City, has nothing to do with weather. Number 3. Chicago has the largest public library system in the USA. It has 81 branches and serves over 10 million visitors. That's pretty cool. Libraries are amazing, amazing, amazing places. Wonders can be done in libraries. If you do not have a library card, go get one and check out your local library. Number 4. Chicago is home to the only river in the world that flows backward. Yes! The Chicago River was originally designed to flow into Lake Michigan, but in the late 1800s, the city reversed the river's flow to prevent sewage and pollution from flowing into the lake. Talk about man interfering with nature. And number 5, Chicago is a major hub for transportation, with the busiest airport in the world by number of takeoffs and landings. O'Hare International Airport handles 83 million passengers every single year and has direct flights to over 200 destinations worldwide. And lucky me, that's the airport I'm in. Literally the busiest airport in the world. What could go wrong? Nothing, right? Right? Anyway, just before I was listing off those facts about Chicago, I mentioned I had a layover. So you can call it a layover, a connection, a connecting flight, or a transfer. You know, there's many different ways to say it. So I have a short layover in Chicago, and then I have a direct flight. I have a connecting flight in Chicago, and then I have a direct flight. I think I have a transfer in Chicago, and then it's a direct flight non-stop to Dublin. So a few different ways of talking about it there. All right, so, I was quite nervous on this layover because it was short. It was only like 2 hours. And on top of that, I had to switch terminals and go through US security again. I was panicked. I was worried I wasn't going to make it. My anxiety levels were rising, and I was thinking, I'm going to miss my flight. Now, if you miss a flight, it's not a major worry. The airline have to honor your ticket and they have to get you to your final destination. That's if the mistake is on their end. If the mistake is on your end, it's one thing. If you're just sitting in the bar and that's why you miss your flight, I don't know what the rules are there. But if I did not make it to my flight on time, there wouldn't have been an issue. I'd be put on the next available flight. However, it's Christmas. There's not many available flights around. That's the problem. Given that Chicago Airport, as we said earlier, is one of the busiest airports in the world, I knew my 2-hour connection was a bit of a long shot in terms of me making it. I had to change terminals, and that's the kicker in the story. Changing terminals always takes a long time. I was going from Terminal 2 to Terminal 5, and there was a train, thankfully. I didn't have to run the entire way. That's how big this airport is. There's a train in the airport going from terminal to terminal to terminal. It's wild, folks. It is absolutely huge. If you've ever seen Home Alone, that's the airport they're in Home Alone. So I mentioned there how I felt it was a bit of a long shot, having less than 2 hours to make my connection. a long shot is something highly unlikely to succeed. You know, it's a long shot, but let's try and hope for the best. So me making my connection, my transfer, my connecting flight was a long shot. But by God, do I love a long shot. Because it means you have a chance. You don't have a huge chance, but you have a chance, and that chance is all you need. I love it when something is a long shot, but you still get it done. That's a great feeling. All right, where was I? Yes. Arriving to Chicago. So we touched down. I look out the window, and it was quite interesting because there was an airplane on the runway surrounded by police, fire, and ambulances. It was a sight to see, folks. The entire runway was covered in flashing lights. I didn't really care because I was on a mission to go from Terminal 2 to Terminal 5 as quick as possible, but it was still pretty cool. I've never seen that before. Just one plane surrounded by all the different emergency services. So I kind of wondered what happened. Anyways, here we go. The plane lands. We taxi to the gate. I am one of the first people to get off the plane, to disembark the plane, to exit the plane. I sprint into Terminal 2. I look left, I look right. I see an employee. "Hey, sir, how do I get to Terminal 5? I shout. "That way, sir," he pointed. And off I ran. It was at this moment I summoned my inner Olympic athlete and I sprinted across the airport. I dodged every obstacle as it appeared. Suitcases became hurdles. Children became targets for my knees. Adults were pushed on my arms and the elderly were shouldered to the ground. I somersaulted over bags and I hopped onto the airport train. I really felt like I was going to make it. I could taste the gin and tonic they were going to serve me on the plane. I was ready to get off at Terminal 5 and rush through security to make my flight on time. I get to Terminal 5. The train pulls up. The doors slowly open. I am first off the train. I run up the escalator. I turn the corner for security and boom! Huge line at security. At this stage, there was nothing I could do. I just had to wait and be patient. It is what it is. Here's a tip for y'all. Do not fuck around in airport security lines. There's generally little to nothing you can do to make it go faster. Furthermore, I was now in the USA, and they are a very policed country there. They are a country that takes airport security far more seriously than most other countries, rightfully so, given their history. I log into the Wi-Fi at the airport and got a text from my dad. My flight was delayed by 20 minutes. Music to my ears. Absolute music. You know, if something is music to your ears, it means you just received some really, really, really good news. Something happened and you couldn't be happier. We generally use a phrase in response to some good news that we hear. That is music to my ears, or that was music to my ears. And sometimes we don't even say that. We just use the verb be. Or we don't even use the verb be. We just say music to my ears. Imagine you're in college and you have an essay coming up and, you know, you're pretty stressed about it. And then the professor decides to give you an extension for your assignment. That's when you can say music to my ears. Another thing you should do is go back and listen to the part where I arrived at the airport. It's super important because notice the grammar I used. It was mostly in the present tense. Why? Well, I think I've spoken about this before in my podcast, but when you're telling a story and you want to be super engaging, we generally use the present simple. We use the present simple as it really helps the listener, you, build a vivid picture of what I'm saying. It includes you more and generally speaking gets you more invested in what the speaker is saying. So if you're going to tell someone an anecdote or a story, don't be afraid to mix in some present tense in your story, especially for the exciting parts. Back to my story. I got the text from my dad. I read the flight was delayed by 20 minutes. I was incredibly happy, able to breathe again. It made me feel optimistic about making my connection, about making the final leg of my journey. I get through security. I get to my gate with 1 or 2 minutes to spare. Phew! I was all set to board. And then it began. Do you remember? At the start of this segment, I mentioned how I looked out the airplane window upon arrival and noticed how there was a plane on the runway that was surrounded by police, fire, and ambulance. Well, turns out that was a plane I was due to fly on. There was a hydraulic issue with the plane. What is a hydraulic issue, I hear you saying? No idea. I'm an English teacher, not a fucking aircraft mechanic. All I know is that a hydraulic issue is something serious enough to stop the plane from flying. To stop the plane from flying. This explained the 20-minute delay, which I was originally happy about, but little did I know what this issue really meant. That 20-minute delay was then increased by about an hour. You know, the person came on the intercom and said, "We're very sorry for the inconvenience, but flight E1 whatever is delayed by another hour." So, what do you do in an airport when you're on holiday mode when your flight's delayed by an hour? What? Well, of course you go to the bar. Where else are you going to go? It's a fucking airport. I mean, you could read or something, but I had that holiday buzz. Remember holiday buzz or holiday mode in part 1 or 2? I can't remember which. Yeah, I'm still in that zone and I'm ready to just have a few drinks. And folks, this is where I can now talk about the benefits of being Irish. Now, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I don't know how you'll feel about it, but being Irish has many, many, many perks. For instance, we're all handsome or beautiful bastards. We're fucking hilarious. But most of all, we know how to make the best of a bad situation, probably because we've had so many bad situations in the past. When I'm in airports, I do enjoy playing the game. It's called Spot the Irish. And it's a game where I just look around the airport and try to identify other Irish people. Because let me tell you now, there are Irish people everywhere. For such a small country, we have a huge diaspora. That's a nice word, diaspora. And diaspora is just the people of your country who have left. So I'm a member of the Irish diaspora in Canada. And so any airport you go to, any town you go to, there's probably an Irish bar and there's probably 1 or 2 Irish people lurking around. So I'm in the airport, I'm looking around, I get to the airport bar and I spot some Irish people. It did not take long. I go over, we have a tiny wee chat, and of course I sit down and proceed to have a drink or 2 with my newfound Irish friends. Give it 5 minutes and another person joins us who, guess what? Also from Ireland. 5 more minutes and we have a whole party going on. We got a table the length of the bar just full of Irish people in Chicago Airport. You know, we're all sharing stories of our travels. We're all trying to figure out who knows who and who is from where. And of course, we are all buzzed and excited because we're flying home for Christmas, and you can't beat a Christmas in Ireland. You really can't. It's the best thing ever. Now, I mentioned there how we were trying to figure out who is from where and who knows who. And that's a typical Irish thing. The most typical Irish question you're ever going to hear is, do you know blah blah from blah blah? Do you know Ronan from Sligo? Do you know John from Cork? Do you know Aoife from Galway? Something like that. Now, you'd probably use their second name as well. But you see, we are a small country. A country of only 4 million beautiful people. Maybe it's more now. Maybe 5 or 6, I think. We're still beautiful, don't worry. But that question of, do you know so-and-so from wherever, is quite popular and usually turns up some result. And as it turns out, there was a guy there from Sligo, my hometown, and we compared our friends list and found out we have several friends in common. So that's one connection. But the connection that blew my mind came from the man I was sitting beside. A lad from Dublin. Dublin is the capital of Ireland, so he's a dub. D-U-B.
Dub is the term we use to refer to people from Dublin. That or asshole, one or the other. So me and this dub, we got talking. He tells me he has spent some time out in the west of Ireland. Well, the west is my stomping ground. That's where I grew up. I ask him where. Westport, he says. Fuck off, says I, in disbelief. No, not really Westport. A little town outside Westport, he says. Go on, says I. You wouldn't know it, he says. Go on, says I. Gower, says he. My jaw drops. No way. No way, I say that again. I said, you must be fucking with me. This guy, I met in Chicago Airport, tells me he not only spent time in the west of Ireland, but spent time in a tiny little village called Gower. He has family from this tiny little village called Gower. His uncle, his father, his aunt are all from Gower. Gower has a population of about 800 people, and that is on a very busy day. I was in disbelief at this. You want to know why I was in disbelief? Well, before I tell you why, I'd like to tell you some facts about Gower. And first, how you spell it. Aughaghagower. Gower. Just so you can see why I was in such disbelief. Gower is a tiny village located in the west of Ireland outside a bigger town called Westport. Gower's population is currently 800 people and at its highest was over 10,000 people. That is also crazy. Gower has 3 pubs, a shop, a post office and a church. Gower is a tiny remote village that not too many people know of. You may be asking yourself, why the fuck is Ronan talking about this tiny village that not even Irish people know of? Well, the simple reason is that this son of a gun who I just met in Chicago Airport, his father, his uncle, his aunt are from where? Gower. My father is from Gower. My father and his uncle were best friends in school. And here we are, 2 strangers, happen to sit next to each other in a bar in Chicago Airport. Neither of us live in Chicago, and we end up having very strong ties to a tiny remote village in the west of Ireland. It is a small world, folks. A small world. That is a beautiful idiom. And we use this when we're surprised at meeting a person or discovering a connection in a distant place with a person. So for me, my father is from Gower, a tiny remote village in Ireland. I sit beside this man in Chicago and his uncle is from the same town. His uncle and my dad were best friends growing up. That's a small world. Have you ever had an encounter like that, where you met a person from your hometown in a remote country? Or you met someone with a connection to your hometown abroad? When you're Irish, it's always a small world. We are a small country, but by God, we are everywhere. Anywhere you go, you will meet someone from Ireland. I shit you not, folks. I shit you not. Oh, we'll talk about that in a moment. All right, so where are we? In Chicago Airport. The delays keep coming. People are getting notified via email, via text message or something. I'm not getting any notifications because I booked it through a partner airline. Future tip, do not book through partner airlines. And, you know, it was fun at first. We're sitting in the bar, we're having fun, we're all chatting. And then the 1 hour delay turned into 2 hours, turned into 3 hours, turned into 4 hours, turned into 5 hours. At this point, I couldn't afford to sit in the bar anymore. I mean, who the fuck can? It's an airport bar. Some of the girls there are getting emotional. They were drinking too much wine and then the tears start flowing. And I'm just like, no, fuck this. I'm dipping out of this. You know, it seems to be a common theme in my journey home. People getting too drunk in bars and just being annoying. So these chicks get too drunk. We're all getting pissed off. We're all at the end of our tether. We're angry. We're furious. We're not even sure what's happening. You know, we're being kept in the dark. You know, we were never told what was the plan. We were never told if we were going to have a new plane come in and take us, if we could hop on a different plane home. We were kept in the dark. I honestly thought there was one South African guy who was going to start swinging at people. I really thought he was. He was getting so worked up and angry. Now, he was getting angry at the people at the desk, which I don't agree with. It's not their fault. They can't do much. But in that situation, I can see where he got frustrated. Whilst I don't agree with it, I honestly thought he was going to start swinging. So, 8 hours later. 8 hours. And then they come to us with another announcement, and they say, we're going to put you up in a hotel for the night. The flight has been cancelled. No. After 8 hours of sitting in that fucking airport, they're now just going to put us up in a fucking hotel? They couldn't have done that 5 hours ago? I know what you're saying. Hotel. Amazing. Free hotel. But I did not care. I just wanted to get home at this stage. I was so pissed. I was tired. I wasn't happy. I was smelly. I felt gross. I hadn't eaten anything substantial. My patience was running thin. I just wanted to get home to see my wife and my family. It was shit. Once they cancelled our flight, everyone had to leave the departures lounge and get into a long queue to be put into a hotel. About 2 hours later, I get to the hotel. So this is like 10 hours after I arrive in Chicago Airport, and I'm only getting to a hotel now. You know, good news though. We got a $40 voucher for food. Hooray! Bad news. The fucking kitchen is closed. I shit you not, my friends. The kitchen closed like 1 minute after I checked into the hotel. We can order food to the hotel on like Skip the Dishes or one of those websites, but the $40 does not cover it because it's not hotel food. There was a tiny snack shop in the hotel, and I went to bed with a fucking Reese's cup in my belly. A Reese's cup is a tiny American candy of chocolate and peanut butter. I was livid. I was pissed. I was upset. I was emotional. I was smelly. I felt filthy. I was tired. I was overtired. I was cranky. I was not in a mood to talk to people. I had been on the road for like over 24 hours. My journey was only meant to take 17 hours. I was at the end of my rope. My patience wasn't running thin. It was gone. I got into my hotel room and I screamed. And it felt good. I got the pillow and I screamed into my pillow. I was that frustrated. First time I've ever done that. I'm not gonna lie, it will not be the last. It will do absolute wonders. Like, when you release a scream, I'm sure there's a lot of science behind it. I'm sure there's a lot of statistics or research done on this topic. But screaming, it does help you kind of like calm down and let out that anger. And I had a lot of anger. I mean, I just wanted to get home. Now, I mentioned in that segment how I was at the end of my rope, and that just means like you have no patience at all, which is kind of like the theme of this podcast and the previous one. You know, you've no energy or patience to cope with something anymore, almost like you accept defeat. So you're at the end of your rope, you're unable to cope anymore. Take note of some of the adjectives in that list. Livid, super, super angry. Pissed, upset, emotional. You know, emotional? When a person has feelings that are easily excited and are openly displayed. I was very emotional at that stage. When you get really tired, you'll be emotional. If you get too drunk, you might be emotional. If you're on your period or you're pregnant, you might be more emotional than usual. But yeah, those are all good adjectives, so add those to your Anki cards or your vocabulary lists. Now, I know what you're thinking, or you may be thinking, first world problems and all that shit. But like, come on, man. The airport, or the airline, completely dicked us around. You know, they kept telling us that we would be departing in an hour. Oh, more information in 20 minutes. Come back in 2 hours. Meanwhile, the information never came. They kept kicking the can. They kept delaying the information. Yeah, it was fun meeting other Irish people, having a bit of a party in the airport. That would have been fine if our plane actually left the fucking airport. I mean, I was on the phone for hours with the airline, trying to just secure passage home the next day. It took so long to get through to anyone. And when I did, I got my ticket. And I was going to be departing Chicago at 7 a.m. Bearing in mind, it's like 1 or 2 a.m. right now. And guess what? My new journey home was via motherfucking Miami, the other fucking side of the motherfucking USA. Man, I can feel myself getting pumped up right now, just retelling the story, you know? I can feel my anger boiling. And I tried to sleep that night. I couldn't sleep well. You know, I had to get up super early to get back to the airport for my new flight. And next morning I wake up, I go downstairs for breakfast in the hotel. Thankfully, they gave us a $20 voucher for breakfast. I checked the menu. I order like an orange juice, a coffee, a breakfast sandwich. I tell him I have a voucher for $20. He tells me it's going to come to $26. I say, what? The fucking orange juice was $6. $6 for a glass of motherfucking orange juice. I'm sorry for all the swears. I'm very angry right now. I ask him to take it back. And I just told him I can't afford it right now. And I told him about my journey. And I told him how depressed I was and how I just want to get home. I started to unload on him. And eventually the manager just came out and he gave it to me on the house. So that was nice of the manager. So generous to give me a $6 glass of carton orange juice. I got my breakfast sandwich. And folks, it was the most sorry looking breakfast sandwich known to man. Utterly horrible. Disgusting. It looked sad. I think this breakfast sandwich wanted to kill itself. Have you ever been given food that just didn't look happy? Like legit, the sandwich looked like it was just going to throw itself into the garbage and be done. Sorry looking food. That's such an informal way of describing food. Describing food that looks very unappetizing or very unattractive. You know, it suggests that the food appears pitiful. And it's not going to be enjoyed by anyone. Like maybe the dog might have eaten it, but I don't even know if the dog would have eaten it. I fucking did because I was hungry. So the term sorry in this context is used to express pity or sympathy for the food. You know, he's a sorry looking man over there, he is. You know, I feel sorry for him. And I could say the same about my sandwich. That's a sorry looking sandwich. My heart goes out to the person that has to eat that sandwich. So, sorry looking food is a very colourful and informal way to describe food that is not visually appealing. You know, you're very dissatisfied. Alright. Oh my god, we've been here 30 minutes? Jesus. Alright, I'm going to focus on some of the English now, like get into the teaching part of this podcast. And 7 phrases I'd like to talk about. Number 1, start swinging. 2, to keep you in the dark. 3, to shit you not. 4, to dick around. 5, a long shot. 6, son of a gun. And 7, a little bit more about It's a Small World, because I got another great story about that. So number 1, to start swinging. Yes, to swing has many, many meanings, my friends. To swing can be like at a playground when you're on a swing and you go from side to side. However, in this story, I wasn't referring to that type of swinging. I was referring to punching. And I was saying how there was a South African man, he was drunk, he was shouting at people, and it seemed like he was going to start punching people because he was angry. It seemed like he was going to start swinging. You know, you can just say he was ready to start swinging. He was ready to start throwing his hands. He was ready to start punching people. Have you ever been in a club and seen 2 people just start swinging at each other? You know, it's usually by surprise. Or like there might be 2 people who could be squaring up to each other. They're facing each other in what appears to be anger. It's tense. You can feel the tension in the air. And then suddenly, one of them just throws a punch, and then the other guy throws a punch back, and then they really start 100% fighting. You can say, I was at the bar, and these two guys just started swinging at each other. Thankfully, he did not start swinging, as if he did, he would probably have ended up in jail, and you would accomplish very little if you just start swinging at a person anyways. Swinging, like I said, has many meanings. You can swing a bag in your hand from one side to the other. You can swing with your wife or your husband where you start fucking other couples. Swing, many meanings, folks. So look up, start swinging, and see what hits you get. The next one is to be kept in the dark. And it's an idiom. And it means that you are deliberately being kept uninformed and you're unaware of something. It really suggests that it has been intentional and you're left out of the loop and you're excluded from knowledge or information that is relevant. So we all felt like we were kept in the dark. We felt that Aer Lingus knew this plane wasn't going to fly. I'm sure the mechanic told them what happened, and as a result of that, and because they didn't relay the information, because they didn't tell us, I really felt like we were kept in the dark. If you're at work, this phrase can be used in relationships, business, politics, and personal matters. I felt kept in the dark about the company's financial situation. He was kept in the dark about his husband's affair for months, for example. The phrase does have negative connotations. It does imply a lack of transparency and openness, and it can really lead to feelings of mistrust or betrayal. Collocations, to keep someone in the dark about something. Oh, I was kept in the dark about blah, 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 blah. My husband kept me in the dark about his debt. My wife kept me in the dark about her affair. Of course she did. It's a fucking affair. What do you expect? But to keep in the dark about. Another one is just to keep someone in the dark. And that's you. I've been keeping him in the dark. I do not need him to know what's happening right now. You could also say to be left in the dark. That's another one. So I was left in the dark. I quit my job. I was so pissed off, I felt like I was left in the dark. Have you ever felt like you were kept in the dark about something? Have you ever felt that someone was keeping you in the dark? They're not telling you something deliberately. That is to keep a person in the dark. I hate it. All right, to shit you not. Oh my God, I love this one. I absolutely love this one. And it's a way of saying I am not joking. I am completely 100% serious. That is what this phrase means. I mentioned how I arrived to the hotel 10 hours after getting into Chicago airport. I'm hungry. I haven't really eaten much. I've had a few beers and that's it. The food was way overpriced and stuff. And I had a $40 voucher for the hotel kitchen. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to get myself a steak. That's what I was thinking. And then I check in. And the kitchen's closed. I shit you not, the kitchen's closed. It's like something that you might seem unbelievable, something you might not believe is true, but I shit you not, folks, that kitchen was closed. Yeah. We often use it to add emphasis to a statement or a story like a tag. Like I saw a UFO last night, I shit you not. You can use it at the start of the sentence. I shit you not. I really did win the lottery last week. And that's just letting a person know that you are telling them the 100% truth. So you can use it at the start. I generally use it as a tag, at the end of a sentence or a statement. It's like, I don't know, I'll be giving exam results to my students soon. And I'm going to be like, yo, man, you failed. I shit you not, you're going to repeat the semester. Although I'm not going to say it like that, let's be honest. That's how you get to lose your job. All right, moving on to dick around. So it's very offensive, it's very vulgar. I personally love it. And it refers to when someone is deliberately wasting your time. You know, they're behaving in a foolish or aimless way or unproductive manner. And they're like, you feel they're wasting your time. That is to dick you around. It is, of course, not suitable for the workplace or job interviews or something. But I used it in my story like the airline were dicking us around. You know, they kept saying that you're going to leave in an hour. Your flight will leave in 20 minutes. Or come back in an hour for us. Or something along those lines. So they were dicking us around. They were not being productive. They were not being helpful. I felt like they were wasting our time. They were not giving us a straight answer. So to dick a person around is very negative. It means you're wasting a person's time. And you're behaving in a foolish or aimless or unproductive way. If you're at work and you're not working very hard, your boss might come in and say, quit dicking around and do some work. That was something that one of my old bosses would say. I used to work at a garage. I've had many jobs. And in the garage, the language is quite vulgar, as you can imagine. You know, you're working on cars, you're getting filthy, all that sort of stuff. There's a phrase to swear like a trucker. And my boss definitely swore like a trucker, 100%. And he'd come in, oh, look at you three all dicking around again. Get the fucking work. It's like, what the fuck am I paying you for? Quit dicking around and shit. So he would say it in a lighthearted way, but you could use it in a serious way too. You know, if you don't stop dicking around, you're fucking fired. So if you don't stop wasting time or being unproductive, you're fucking fired. Dick around. Love it. I mentioned a long shot, how it's unlikely that something will happen. You know, winning the lottery is a long shot, but I still bought a ticket just in case. Do you do the lottery? You know it's a long shot that you're going to win, right? You know it's like virtually impossible. The Rugby World Cup is on this year. Ireland are currently world number 1. However, I believe it's a long shot that we'll win the tournament. I believe it'll be a very long shot. We have a terrible history in Rugby World Cups. Terrible, terrible history. And terrible history for big games. This Irish team is special, but I still believe it's a long shot that we win. I'm jaded. I've been an Irish rugby fan for a long time, and I've seen some terrible defeats when we shouldn't have. So for me, I believe it's a long shot. All right. Son of a gun. Yeah. Son of a gun. You could also say, son of a bitch. Doesn't make a difference in this case. It is an informal expression, obviously, used to express surprise or admiration when referring to a person. You know? It's like, oh, that son of a gun. He did it. And that's a positive way. Ugh, that son of a gun. I can't believe he did it. Negative way. So it really does depend on the context and the tone of the speaker. So it's like, oh, that son of a gun, yeah, he's around here somewhere. That's neutral, you know, it's not positive, not negative. So we use it when we want to express admiration or praise for someone. Well, that son of a gun there, he's a really good guy. You know, maybe I'll be looking at my students' essays and I'll see a fantastic essay. Be like, God damn, that son of a gun did it. You know, I'm really happy in that situation. Or maybe I'll be like, God damn, none of these sons of guns did it. That's a negative way. So it just depends on the tone of the speaker and the context of the situation. And I mentioned how that son of a gun who was sitting beside me had strong connections to the town Ahagaur. So I was like, that son of a gun, his uncle was from Ahagaur, my father's from Ahagaur. So yeah, in that case, it was using admiration. You know, he's a cool son of a gun. That's a fact. So son of a gun, a way to express surprise or admiration to a person, can be used negatively or positively. Just depends on the context and the tone of the speaker. Now, folks, we're going to wrap it up with this little lesson. It's a small world. You may not believe me when I say, when you're Irish, it's always a small world. But let me tell you about the time I lived in Norway. My very first teaching job was in a town called Geilo. Geilo. Look it up. Tiny little village in the mountains. My sister and my mother came to visit me, and we went on vacation to a little tinier village called Flum. F-L-A-M is the spelling. Flum is easily one of the most beautiful and picturesque places I've ever been. And I'm living in Canada, folks, and I still say Flum is just amazing, magical, gorgeous. Tiny village situated in the valley. You need to take a gorgeous train ride down into the village from top up of the mountain down to the bottom. It's a valley that was carved out by a glacier, and there's a fjord there. Fjord. 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 And a fjord is a long, deep, narrow body of water that reaches far inland. Fjords are often like in a U shape or something. You know, it's a giant glacier that travels over the land for centuries maybe and eventually melts. And fjords can be found in Norway, Chile, New Zealand, Canada, Greenland, US. There's one in Ireland, would you believe? And you know, you can take a boat tour of a fjord and it is 100% worth it. So, fjord, look it up. Maybe you're living in a country with fjords, I'm not sure. Either way, if you ever get an opportunity to go to a fjord, I would strongly recommend it. One of these natural beauties of the world. So, we're in this tiny village, population of 350 people. And we go to the local bar and restaurant. Now, you know, we didn't drink a lot because in Norway, one beer is about $20. So we had one each. And we got talking to the barman. And of course, as soon as he spoke, we knew that son of a gun was Irish. However, we didn't know exactly from where he's from. So turns out, this motherfucker, working in a remote Norwegian village, population of 350 people, off the beaten track, working in the bar, is from the exact same motherfucking town that we are. He grew up in Sligo. That is a prime example of when you can use the idiom, it's a small world. And good luck beating that one, folks. Good luck. Like, we are talking remote village. Like, you get off a train, you hop on another train to get there. You're down the bottom of a mountain and there's only 350 people there and the barman is from the same fucking town as you. Now that is a small world. Alright, to revise my story so far. I get to Vancouver. My friend is unavailable to hang out, so, you know, I just sleep in the airport. I'm awoken by a rude woman. I get to Chicago. I sprint through Chicago Airport and knock over a few people on the way. I get to my gate with 20 minutes to spare because there was a minor delay. The delay gets extended. I end up in a bar with a load of Irish people. The delay gets extended again. South African man getting angry. Thought he's going to start fighting someone. The delay gets extended again. The girls start to cry. Passengers are kept in the dark about what is happening. Flight gets cancelled. Put up in a hotel. Get to the hotel. Restaurant closed. Go to bed. Starving. Emotional. Scream into my pillow. I'm a mess. Wake up. Get the worst breakfast sandwich ever. I honestly thought about bringing the sandwich to hospital. It was that bad. That's a fucking journey. And still, I'm in North America. You know, at this stage, I was meant to be having breakfast with my aunt in Dublin. My aunt was in Dublin. She lives in the USA. And as it turned out, we were going to overlap in Dublin for about 12 hours. And our plan was to have breakfast together and then have lunch together. And then I'd go back to my hometown. I haven't seen my aunt in several years due to all the crazy stuff that's gone on over the last couple of years. And now I've missed that. Yeah, I'm still pissed. I'm still emotional. I should be in Dublin. I should be with my wife. I should be on Irish soil. But I'm still in motherfucking Chicago. Alright, folks. That is part 3 of Murphy's Law. I genuinely thought I'd be able to get this done in 3 episodes. But obviously I can't. Because there's definitely more of this story to go. Murphy's Law is everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And you know, a lot of things have gone wrong thus far, but I haven't even left the continent. I haven't even entered Eastern Standard Time. I'm in the middle of the USA. I could have driven to Chicago in that time, but I took a flight to get there. I was delayed in the airport for 10 hours. Woke up cranky, ready to rock and roll to Dublin, or to Miami, and then Dublin. So, You're going to have to wait. I'm going to keep you on ice. And part 4 of Murphy's Law will be out soon. Ladies and gentlemen, dogs and cats, humans, aliens, whatever you are, thank you for listening. I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy. And we will catch up very, very soon. Bye for now.
Before I begin, my name is Ronan. This is the Little Seal English Podcast. Please check out my website, www.littlesealenglish.com. Check out my Instagram, my Telegram, and my TikTok, of course, and YouTube. Check them all out, please. Okay, now that that's done, let's get started. My friends, hello and welcome to the 4th and final episode of Murphy's Law. Yes, this is the end of the Murphy's Law saga. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, if you listen to episodes 70, 71 and 73, they are called Murphy's Law 1, 2 and 3 respectively. And Murphy's Law is a podcast episode saga, we'll call it, whereby I recount my journey from Kelowna, Canada to Sligo, Ireland when I was travelling home for Christmas in December 2022. You should probably stop listening and go back to listen to those for this one to make a lot of sense. I mean, you can 100% ignore my advice and learn all the random English that's included because there's no real plan for these podcasts. It's just tell you a story and teach you English at the same time. And let me tell you, this is a motherfucking story. So, my advice, go back and listen. However, I am going to provide a beautiful recap in a moment of episode 1, 2, and 3. I hope you enjoy, folks, the last episode of Murphy's Law. Without any further ado, here is the recap. Okay, so let me give you a very, very quick and fast recap of part 1, part 2, and part 3. Are you ready? I was travelling home for Christmas in 2022. Travelling at Christmas is terrible. I do not recommend it. Travelling at Christmas is the worst because it's so busy and there's always cancellations. I slept in Vancouver airport because my friend was unable to meet me because she got sick. I spent some time in downtown Vancouver where I met a chick who was batshit crazy and hitting on everyone around her. I slept on the floor of the airport and was rudely awoken by a lady on her phone. She spoke like she was addressing a crowd of 1,000 people despite only one person being near her, me, asleep. I took a plane from Vancouver to Chicago, and that's where the shit show really began. From there, I was due to fly to Chicago to Dublin to meet my aunt in the airport and have breakfast. My aunt lives in the USA, but was in Ireland just before Christmas. We had an overlap of about 3 or 4 hours where we'd planned to meet and eat breakfast. Following that, my wife was going to join and we were going to have second breakfast. Then we were going to drive back to my hometown of Sligo. Plain sailing, right? Plain sailing. That's a sexy idiom. If something is plain sailing, it's smooth. There's no issues. It's like sailing a boat in calm water and it's easy. The roads were busy in the city, but once we hit the highway, it was plain sailing. However, my journey was anything but, folks. So where were we? The recap. Okay. So, I caught the plane to Chicago and had to rush through the airport to make my connection. I jumped over suitcases, knocked kids over with my knees, got through US security, got to my gate. My flight from Chicago to Dublin was delayed again, delayed more, and then finally cancelled. Before it was cancelled, I met a bunch of Irish people in the airport who were also travelling home for Christmas. We had a few drinks together and some of them started to cry, and that's when I left. The airline puts us up in a hotel and gave us all a $50 voucher for food. However, the hotel restaurant was closed, so we couldn't use the food voucher. Woke up hungry, got served a sorry looking breakfast sandwich that looked like it wanted to die. I get to the airport and find out I've been rebooked from Chicago to Miami and then Miami to Dublin. What could possibly go wrong? Famous last words. So, you ready? Let's go with part 4. So after my terrible breakfast, I went outside to grab the airport shuttle bus. And boy, oh boy, was it cold in Chicago. There was a wind that would cut you. It was ice cold, let me tell you that. So the shuttle is the bus from the airport to the hotel or vice versa. Excuse me, where's the airport shuttle? How often does the airport shuttle go? When will the next shuttle be here? Some example sentences with the word shuttle. Anywho, got to the airport, got through security without any issues, and I made a beeline for the bar. I beelined for the bar. What does it mean to beeline? Well, to beeline means that you go in a straight line without any turns. I beelined to the bar. I didn't stop after security to look around at the shops. I didn't do anything. I went straight to the bar. And you can use that expression when someone goes straight to something in a straight line. Obviously, in this one here, it's a little bit figurative. I walked through the airport, I saw the bar, and as soon as I saw the bar, I walked in a straight line towards the bar. I beelined for the bar. So it's not as if I got through security and just ran to the bar. I walked around looking for it first. When I saw it, I walked straight toward it. You know, I didn't look left, I didn't look right. If someone was in my way, I would just push them aside or something like that, and I beelined for the bar. As soon as I got to the restaurant, I beelined to the toilet. I really needed to pee. So to beeline is to go quickly in a straight, direct course. A beeline is a noun, and it's the line that you walk. I made a beeline to the bar. Nothing was getting in my way. As soon as I got past security, I beelined for the bar. Nothing was getting in my way. You know, I mentioned there how I got through security without any issues. And that's a real common question people ask you about travel. How was security? And here's just a couple of random answers for that question, how was security? You can say security was a breeze. Very easy. So that's number one. Number two, security was terrible. So many delays. 3. I got through without issue. 4. Oh, you know, it only took 5 minutes. 5. Security was terrible. There was a lineup of 40 minutes. I thought we were going to miss the flight. 6. Security was a shit show. 7. They checked my bag. 8. I had to get frisked. 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 And to frisk is when the security workers pat you down with their hands to check for weapons or something. I went through the full body scanner. Number 7 or 8, I can't remember. You can say the dog barked at you, for instance. Now hopefully it won't. The dog is referring to the security dog that work at airports. They pick up the scent of various things, and if they bark or if they sit beside a person, that usually means the person has some sort of smell coming off them, which could indicate X, Y, or Z. A sniffer dog is what we call them. Sniffer dog, a security dog, and they always have good noses, let me tell you that, a good nose. And, the last thing you could say about security was on point today. And if security is on point, that just means everything was smooth, it was easy to get through. So now you know how to answer the question, how was security? Of course, you have to play with those phrases and tinker and tailor them for whatever situation you're in. Anywho, even though I'm not a fan of soccer, I'm more of a rugby guy myself, I was going to watch the World Cup final between France and Argentina. Because what else are you going to fucking do in an airport? I ordered some food from the bar and a beer for breakfast. And that is one thing I do love about airports. Absolutely, time don't matter in airports. Whatever time your body is on could be totally different to the person next to you. So if you're having a drink at 5 a.m. or 7 a.m. in the airport, it doesn't mean jack shit. Because who knows where you are coming from, or who knows how long you've been awake. I love airports. They make me feel normal for drinking so early in the day. Anywho, I'm watching the World Cup final. Argentina are 2-0 up. They're probably going to win. I cannot see France getting back into this. Right? Argentina are 2-0 up. Argentina are 3-2 up. That's kind of like how we talk about sports scores. Barcelona are 3 up against Madrid. And that would mean they're winning by 3 goals. And we only use it when it's going on. They are 2 up. They are 2 down. Could be another one. Oh, my team is 2 down. I don't like this game, for instance. And you use it for any sport. that has a score that they have to get more points than the other team. So I had to catch my flight to Miami, which meant I was going to miss the second half of the World Cup. Murphy's Law. That actually didn't bother me too much because I'm not really a fan of soccer. However, as I found out, it was apparently the greatest World Cup final ever. Apparently, France came back, leveled the game, it went to penalties or something. Long story short, I missed the greatest World Cup final in modern history because I was on a plane to Miami. And get this, folks, who was I sitting beside? A kid. A child. A baby. Yeah, a baby. That is like the last person you want to be sitting beside on a flight. However, this child was super cute and didn't cry once, and this child was very, very nice. He was really funny. But let's be honest, whenever you see a kid on a plane, you get nervous. Is that kid going to cry? Is that kid going to sit beside me? I really hope that kid doesn't sit beside me. And look around next time a baby enters a plane. You're going to see some people sweating, especially if there's a seat free beside them. Now, this baby was super cool, super cute, super cool, and it was only a 3-hour flight, so it wasn't that bad overall. The kid did not cry once. It was a very well-behaved baby. His name was Marcus, and Marcus loved pulling on my headphones and holding my finger from time to time. I legit had zero issues with that. His mother didn't want him bothering me, but I assured her it's okay, and I would rather he pull my headphones or grab my finger than cry. I did feel very sorry for the mother. She passed out so quickly and kept waking up. She was obviously incredibly tired. I mean, traveling with a kid is not easy. Traveling with a kid by yourself sounds like an absolute nightmare. Anywho, get to Miami Airport. Go to check what gate my connecting flight to Dublin is. I'm about to get on my last flight back to Ireland, and guess what? 2-hour delay, baby. Oh yeah. Murphy's Law. We were due to leave Miami in 2 hours, but now it was 4 hours. I mean, like I said, it is Murphy's Law, right? Of course, there was going to be another delay. So I exit the area of the airport that I'm in, and knowing it was going to be 4 hours before my flight left, I decided to not go through security just yet. I just really wanted to take some time in the airport and maybe check out Miami a bit. Now, when I say check out Miami, my plan was to go for a walk outside the airport to see what it was like. I was not planning on heading into the city or anything because that would just be tempting fate. If I did that, I'm asking for trouble. With everything that's gone wrong so far, I am not leaving the vicinity of the airport. So I walk around, I step outside, and holy sweet Jesus, it is hot. It is so, so hot. Remember, I live in Canada, which is in the north. When I left Kelowna, it was about -10, -15 degrees. I got to Chicago. Chicago was about -15 or -20 degrees. And I get to Miami, and it is +20 degrees in December. It was so hot. I was not dressed for the heat. I did not spend too long outside. I just wanted some fresh air before I went through security. But unfortunately, the only fresh air I got was like humid, cigarette smoke, or exhaust fumes from all the traffic. So it wasn't the greatest. I mentioned there how I was dressed for. And if you're dressed for something, that's like a really just common adjective, I guess. I wasn't dressed for the heat. When I go to the mountains, I'm dressed for the mountains. That means I have my boots, my hat or toque, my gloves, my winter jacket, for instance. You need to dress for the relevant conditions when hiking. No such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. Dress for the weather. So I wasn't dressed for the weather in Miami. I was dressed for the weather in Kelowna, dressed for the weather in Chicago, dressed for the weather in Ireland, but not dressed for the weather in Miami. And I really did not want to start sweating again, so I quickly made my way back inside. There's not much for me to tell you about Miami, because I didn't really get to see much. I heard a lot of Spanish. I heard a lot more Spanish than English, to be honest. So Spanish is a widely spoken language there. And I go through security. I get to the departure lounge. I notice my flight has been delayed by another hour or two. And I'm starting to think, am I ever going to get home to Ireland? Murphy's law. So like at this point here, folks, I'm already more than 48 hours delayed. You know, I'm already waiting this long to get home. I'm genuinely wondering if I am ever going to get home for Christmas right now. But what do you do when you originally had a 2-hour delay? It turned into a 4-hour delay. Then it turned into a 5-hour delay. What do you do? What? Of course. The bar. The airport bar, where everyone is welcome. And get this. This is the great thing about Miami Airport. They got a fucking open top smoking area in the airport. Yes, an open top smoking area. So I went to the bar, I sat down in the smoking area, and I was able to look up at the clouds, and I thought to myself, will I ever get home? I was staring at the clouds in my prison of Miami Airport. That's what it felt like. I'm a bit dramatic, I know. But still, you get what I'm saying. It was actually just real nice to sit in the smoking area. Yeah, I know there's people smoking. I know secondhand smoke is dangerous and everything, but it felt like I was outside. And that's one thing I really dislike about airports is the lack of fresh air, the inability to go outside. I would much rather stay in the outdoor smoking area where not many people were even smoking than sit indoors in the recycled air. I got myself a snack, some food. I people watched. I caught up on the news. I wrote some of the podcast. But folks, I was ready to go home. You know, as energetic as I may sound talking about it, you have to understand I was just done at this stage. I was done. So fast forward a couple of hours. Okay, that's a good phrase. Fast forward a couple of hours. Fast forward a year, I'm living in Canada. Fast forward an hour, I'm waiting for my plane. Fast forward plus time plus present continuous or present tense. Fast forward a couple hours, I'm sitting in the bar. Fast forward a couple of weeks and I finally arrive home for Christmas. Yeah, we use that phrase, fast forward plus time, when we want to skip over a period of time because, you know, nothing exciting happened in that time. And yeah, fast forward a couple of hours. What do I mean by that? Well, during that couple of hours, I sat down, I browsed, I ate food, probably went to the toilet, drank some water, counted how many suitcases I could see in the airport. Nothing too exciting, to be honest. So that's why I would say fast forward. So if you're telling a story to people, use that to skip over a period of time. So one day I was living in Ireland and I had an idea to move to Canada. Fast forward 8 years and I'm still here. So what happened in that 8 years? Nothing major, maybe. But you get me. Fast forward plus time. So fast forward a couple of hours. We see our plane landing at Chicago Airport. It was delayed. So that means it was a quick turnaround for the staff and pilots. They had to hustle to get the airplane clean and ready for the next crew or for the next group of passengers to board. And we board. Yes, we actually get on our airplane only like 4 or 5 hours late. And guess what? The airplane was a heap of shit. No joke. A heap of shit. There's a freaking Irish idiom for you. I think it's mainly for Ireland. A heap is like a large amount of. And it's generally used for shit or manure. So if I say something was a heap of shit or a heap of, it's terrible. And that plane was old and a massive heap of shit. Why was it a heap of shit, I hear you asking? Well, first it wasn't fully cleaned because of the short turnaround. That doesn't bother me too much, as long as the engine and everything like that is working. Half the TVs in the plane weren't working. I opened my armrest where the remote for the TV was meant to be, and it was just loose wires. No joke. Half the bins won't close properly or they're rattling. The chairs are broken or uncomfortable. Some of them are ripped. And it was an absolute heap of shit of an airplane. I couldn't believe it. Now, thankfully, there was no one sitting beside me, and the plane was half empty, so I was able to scooch over to take the seat beside me and use that TV. Scooch over, good phrasal verb for moving seat. Scooch over, let me sit beside you. Or that would be if you're on a long couch and you're in the middle. Hey, Ronan, scooch over, let us sit beside you. So I scooched over to the next seat and I had a TV, thankfully. Oh, but my God, folks, it was an absolute shit show. It was an absolute disaster. It was already late. There was no complimentary drinks, so people were not too happy about that. Now, we did explain our situation, and there was several other people on that flight who were on the original Vancouver flight, and by God, did we want a complimentary drink, and did we get a complimentary drink? Why? Because the squeaky oil gets the wheel. So I had a lovely gin and tonic, maybe 2 or 3 of them. Tried to sleep, but honestly, I couldn't really sleep. I was just so overtired, I guess. You know, overtired when you want to sleep, but because you're so tired, your body won't do it. Maybe because you're thinking, or you even have your eyes closed, but you just can't seem to fall asleep. Well, that was me in that situation. And obviously, I just wanted to get back to Ireland. So I was on this plane that's a heap of shit. You know, maybe you remember, but there was a time when flying was like bougie. Flying was like fancy. There was a time, many, many years ago, I guess. And flying is absolutely not that anymore. The seats are cramped. People are packed on like sardines. And yeah, just generally was pretty shit. But let's move on from that. What happens next? Well, I can report overall the food was mediocre at best. It was mediocre at best. It was average, not very good. That is a lovely sexy phrase, folks. Mediocre at best. And that means that it's not better than mediocre. It could be much worse, but certainly not better. So if someone asks you, how was your dinner in that restaurant? And you say it was mediocre at best, I will absolutely avoid that restaurant. Like, the best they can do is mediocre. They can't do good. They can do average or below average at best. So the food on the plane was mediocre at best. The plane was mediocre at best. My entire experience was mediocre at best. But we were getting closer to Dublin. What could go wrong? Surely nothing. Thankfully, nothing went wrong. We land in Dublin Airport. I remember being on the plane and talking to the guy who I mentioned in part 3 of the podcast, the guy whose uncle and father went to school at my father's small world. And I said to him, Paddy, I am not getting excited until this plane is touched down in Dublin and that door is open. I did not want to get excited. I did not want to get my hopes up because Murphy's Law. For all I knew, Dublin Airport would be closed or some shit like that. We'd get into the airport and suddenly there'd be a lockdown. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I just had a feeling the journey wasn't over yet. The plane lands. The plane taxis to the gate. The seatbelt sign is lifted. We get up. We walk off the plane. I can smell Irish air. I start to smile. For the first time in like 60 hours or something, I start to smile. I am starting to get excited. I'm about to see my wife for the very first time in 6 fucking weeks. To put that into perspective, since we met, I don't think we spent 6 weeks apart. Since moving to Canada, we hardly spent a few nights apart. That's pretty wild to think about. I walk out of security. I remember, it was a long trip. It was a shit show of a trip. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And as I entered arrivals at Dublin Airport, there was an absolutely amazing school choir there singing Christmas songs. It was beautiful. It was legit just what I needed. It was incredibly emotional. You're arriving home for Christmas, the biggest holiday in an Irish calendar. People from around the world are returning home for 2 weeks. I can't stress to you enough how big a deal Christmas is in Ireland and how big it is when people come home, because the level of emigration for Irish people is just through the roof. So many people have left. So many of my friends have left Ireland. Some to return, some never to return. It's just a huge thing we do in Ireland. We emigrate. You arrive home for Christmas. You're tired. You're cranky. You're smelly. You're at your wit's end. You arrive to your country and there's a beautiful choir singing Irish Christmas songs upon your arrival. There's no stopping the waterworks. My heartstrings were being pulled. I look around and so many happy faces. Christmas decorations all over the place. The sound of bells ringing. The choir in the background. So many tears of joy. So many people around. So many people eagerly awaiting their loved ones from abroad. So many families, kids, mums, dads, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, everyone you can think of. It was just such a happy buzz and environment. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I get out into arrivals. I look around. I hear my name. It's my wife. We hadn't seen each other in 6 weeks. The longest time apart since we met in 2015. It was incredibly emotional. Yes, I shed tears. Yes, she shed tears. Yes, if you seen us, you would have shed tears. You could feel the love in the airport arrivals. We hugged. We embraced. We didn't leave for God knows how long. We were just holding each other. Get a little teary sometimes thinking about it. It was surreal. Like, absolutely surreal. I mean, what a feeling to finally arrive home, be in her arms, hear the choir, back on Irish soil, 2 days late, whatever, shit happens, there's nothing you can do about it. 69 hours late overall. 69 hour journey, folks. My 17-hour journey turned into 69 hours. No joke. By the time I calculated it, I left my house in Kelowna to arrive into my house in Ireland. It was 69 hours. Yuck. However, I was home. Murphy's Law, folks. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Thank you all for listening. And that, my friends, is that. That is Murphy's Law, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. I hope you enjoyed. As I said 2 hours ago, my name is Ronan. This is the Little Seal English podcast, and my job is to help you understand and speak high-level, natural English. Make sure to check back to this page next week for another podcast. Bye for now.